You are waiting. You do not even know what you are waiting for anymore. A sign from the universe, a cosmic alignment, the illusion of the right time. Notice the subtle tightening in your chest right now as these words hit you. Feel that slight flutter in your stomach, that invisible hand urging you to scroll away, to find something lighter, something easier to digest. Do not look away. That physical discomfort is the first symptom of your awakening. That sudden urge to escape is not your attention span failing. It is Archonic interference. We call it the Skip Reflex, the program mechanism of your ego panicking because it senses an imminent frequency recalibration. Your psyche has built-in security guards that patrol the borders of your current identity, and they are sounding the alarm. They want you to stay comfortable in your stagnation. They want you to stay asleep. They want you to keep waiting. For centuries, they have whispered a toxic lullaby into the collective unconscious. Patience is a virtue. Good things come to those who wait. It is a brilliant, devastating lie. Patience, in the passive way you have been conditioned to practice it, is not a spiritual virtue. It is a frequency trap. It is a manufactured holding pattern. A synthetic waiting room designed to keep your soul docile while your vital life force is quietly siphoned away. You are sitting in this cosmic waiting room, bleeding your energy into a future that will never arrive. Why? Because the future is a simulation designed to keep you permanently exiled from the only place where true power exists, the absolute present. You are exchanging your sovereignty for the false comfort of hope. If you are ready to stop bleeding, if you are ready to shatter the waiting room and force your timeline to pivot, then stay. The disruption begins now. Consider the physical sensation of waiting. When you are expecting a shift that never arrives, or when you're waiting for your real life to finally begin, what actually happens in your body? There's a visceral heaviness. Isn't there? A tightening in the solar plexus, a subtle suffocation in the chest. This is not mere impatience or psychological frustration. This is your biology responding to active frequency suppression. Your body is a highly advanced biological antenna, and that sinking feeling is the physical manifestation of your vital energy flatlining. In the physics of consciousness, as explored by Itzhak Bentov, everything is vibration. Movement is the fundamental signature of life. When you enter a state of perpetual waiting, you are essentially commanding your quantum field to freeze. You are telling your cellular structure to adopt the architecture of decay. You are tuning your internal radio away from the dynamic broadcast of creation and locking it onto the static channel of poetry. The matrix thrives on this static. It requires your stillness not for your peace, but for your subjugation. Look closely at the neuroscience of the waiting room. When you passively wait for an external savior, be it a soulmate, a career break, or a cosmic alignment, your brain stops producing the neurochemistry of action. The pathways designed to drive you forward are hijacked, replaced by a low-grade cortisol drip of perpetual anticipation. You become biologically addicted to the mere idea of a future, while your present reality rots around you. Your nervous system is forced into a state of suspended animation, rendering you harmless to the system. The illusion of the right time is perhaps the most successful psychological operation ever waged against the human soul. There is no right time. Time is a construct of the physical dimension, a scaffolding built to keep your infinite consciousness contained. When you wait for alignment, you are asking a system designed for your entrapment to grant you permission to leave. You are politely knocking on the walls of your own prison, hoping the warden will hand you the key simply because you have been a good, patient inmate. Watch what happens in your body right now as you process this truth. Notice the sudden surge of energy, the slight acceleration of your heartbeat, or perhaps a defensive numbness trying to wash over you to protect the ego. That is your soul recognizing the architecture of its own cage. The waiting room is not a place of preparation. It is a place of consumption. You are not gathering strength. You are being slowly, systematically drained by the very mechanism you thought was keeping you safe. Patience, in the way it has been fed to you, is the ultimate Archonic pacifier. We have been systematically programmed to believe that tolerating our own suffering with a quiet, submissive grace is the highest hallmark of spiritual evolution. It is a brilliant, devastating inversion of truth. You are not earning cosmic merit points by sitting passively in the waiting room of your own existence. You are merely proving to the system that you are a reliable, self-regulating battery. You are choosing the anesthesia of delay over the friction of liberation. The architects of this reality do not want you to move. They want you to wait. Waiting implies a hierarchy where you are at the bottom, begging for a scrap of alignment from an external source. It strips you of your sovereign ability to collapse the quantum wave function. When you wait for permission from the universe, you are effectively turning your back on your own divine mechanism. You become a beggar in a kingdom where you were born to wear the crown. Consider the concept of the lucifer, a term used by consciousness explorer Robert Monroe to describe how this matrix harvests human emotional energy. We often assume this parasitic system only feeds on our raw fear, acute trauma, or deep despair. But passive hope, the perpetual, agonizing state of waiting for things to eventually get better, is a highly refined, slow drip nutrient for the demiurge. Hope, in this corrupted, passive form, is not a lifeline. It is an energetic tether tying you to a future timeline that the system controls. Let that sink in for a moment. When you sit quietly, waiting for the universe to deliver your desires or shift your circumstances, your auric field becomes incredibly porous. You are internally generating massive amounts of potential energy through your desires. But because you refuse to take decisive action, that energy never becomes kinetic. It pools around you, stagnates, and ferments. This stagnant energy is easily siphoned off by unseen interdimensional parasites. You think you are practicing divine timing, but you are actually running a free buffet for bottom feeders. The modern spiritual community is heavily infected with this specific mind virus. The ubiquitous mantra to trust the timing of the universe has been weaponized against you. It has formed a massive egregore and autonomous psychic entity sustained by millions of dormant souls who are secretly terrified of their own sovereignty. The Archons whisper this comforting lie into your preconscious awareness to keep you docile. If they can convince you that the universe is driving the car, you will never realize you are the one holding the steering wheel. Watch what happens in your body during these precise moments of realization. Do you feel a sudden flush of heat rising in your face? A defensive tightness locking your jaw? Perhaps an unexplainable, urgent urge to argue with this voice, to defend your patience? That is pure Archonic interference. That is your programmed ego panicking as its primary defense mechanism, procrastination disguised as holy patience is being ruthlessly stripped bare. Breathe through it. This discomfort is the friction of your soul pulling its roots out of the synthetic soul. Think of your consciousness as a highly pressurized, volatile fluid. When you make the conscious decision to wait, you are forcefully capping the pipe. The internal pressure builds exponentially, creating a baseline frequency of dread that the medical system conveniently labels as an anxiety disorder. They medicate you to suppress the symptom, further gaslighting your soul. But that anxiety is not a sickness. It is the visceral, muffled scream of your own trapped life force. You are biologically engineered to move energy, to create, to disrupt the physical plane. By forcing yourself to be patient, you are forcing your own soul to choke on its unexpressed, infinite power. Now imagine the architecture of your reality as a viscous liquid. The longer you stand still, waiting for the external environment to magically change around you, the harder that liquid sets. Your prolonged inaction literally increases the viscosity of your current timeline. You become permanently trapped in the concrete of your own compliance. This is the ultimate hidden danger of the waiting room. The waiting room is not just a tragic waste of your linear time. It is a structural reinforcement of your current energetic prison. Every day you wait, you add another brick to the wall separating you from your authentic timeline. They have deeply confused you about the true nature of spiritual surrender. True surrender is never about waiting. Surrender is the absolute, terrifying acceptance of the present moment, coupled with ruthless, unhesitating action based on that acceptance. Waiting is the exact, polarized opposite of surrender. Waiting is a secret, insidious rejection of the now. It is a psychological escape hatch into a fantasy future that has not been written. And because the future does not actually exist in the framework of Itzhak Bentov's vertical time, you are escaping into a literal void. You are living your life inside a simulation of a simulation. The system wants you anywhere but here. It desperately wants you dwelling on the unchangeable past or hoping for an unreachable future. Why? Because the absolute present, the microscopic still point existing perfectly between two heartbeats, is the only coordinate in the universe where you have the power to rewrite the master code. The waiting room is meticulously designed to keep you orbiting this still point, forever anticipating it, but never actually occupying it. As long as you are waiting to arrive at your destination, you can never truly be here. You are effectively a ghost hunting your own biological vessel, observing a life you refuse to participate in. Feel the heavy density of the word someday. Say it slowly in your mind and notice how it instantly pulls your consciousness out of your physical body. It hollows you out from the inside. Bring your awareness back to the center of your chest right now. Feel the slight tingling in your hands, the sudden, crystalline sharpness of your vision. This is your biocircuitry coming back online. This is the recognition consciousness waking up from the spell of the Archonic pacifier. You are beginning to realize that the door to the waiting room was never actually locked. The gods you feared were just shadows cast by your own hesitation. The alignment you have been praying for will never come to rescue you, because you are the alignment. To break the spell of patience, you must become the disruption. You must stop waiting for the frequency to match your desires, and start emitting a frequency so undeniable that reality has no choice but to bend your will. To understand the architecture of your entrapment, you must look at hope not as a virtue, but as a mechanical pendulum. In the physics of consciousness, particularly the models explored by physicist Itzhak Bentov, reality is generated through oscillation. When you hope for a future outcome, you push the pendulum of your consciousness out of the center. You create an artificial swing between the expectation of salvation and the crushing weight of disappointment. This swing is the very definition of linear time. Bentov described the human mind as a wild pendulum. To grasp this, picture a heavy metal pendulum swinging violently back and forth in a dark room. The system relies entirely on this violent momentum. As long as you are oscillating wildly between someday it will happen and why hasn't it happened yet, you are generating energetic friction. This friction keeps you firmly anchored in the third-dimensional construct. You are moving, yes, but you are not progressing. You are simply swinging inside a cage, the insidious trap of hope that it inherently implies a lack in the present moment. By hoping, you are continuously broadcasting a frequency of absence. You are telling the quantum field, I do not have this right now. And the universe, operating as a perfect, impartial mirror, reflects that exact frequency back to you. More absence, more waiting. Hope is the shimmering bait that the Archons use to keep your pendulum swinging away from the only place where creation actually occurs. Bentov's most profound secret lies in the absolute center of the swinger concept known as the still point. When a pendulum reaches the exact middle of its arc, for an infinitesimal fraction of a second, its velocity reaches zero. It stops completely. At this microscopic still point, consciousness expands infinitely. It drops out of linear time and briefly touches the absolute. But the waiting room is meticulously designed to terrify you of this stillness. It programs you to fear the void. Watch what happens in your body during these moments of profound stillness. When you finally stop chasing the future and attempt to simply exist in the heavy, unedited present, do you feel a sudden, sharp spike of anxiety, a tightening in the throat, as if you are forgetting to do something crucial? This is not your intuition warning you of danger. This is the ego panic. This is the parasite realizing its food source or kinetic anxiety is drying up. Ego panic is the ultimate, undeniable proof that you are actively breaking the matrix. When you abruptly stop waiting and declare that your life is happening now, regardless of the external circumstances, the programmed mind severely rebels. It screams that you are being irresponsible, that you must return to the waiting room and continue hoping. The ego knows that if you stabilize your frequency at the still point, it loses its job as your protective warden. It becomes entirely obsolete. To exit the waiting room, you must deliberately rest the wild pendulum of hope. You must stop oscillating between what was and what could be. This requires a terrifying act of spiritual violence against your own lifelong conditioning. You must look directly at your unfulfilled desires, the things you have been patiently waiting years for, and abruptly drop the expectation. You must sever the energetic cord of someday. You do not surrender the desire itself. You surrender the waiting. Consider the physics of a collapsing quantum wave function. As long as your consciousness is dispersed across a timeline of hope spread thin over months or years of waiting, your reality remains a blurry probability. It lacks the concentrated mass to materialize. But the moment you snap the pendulum back to the dead center, you pull all the dispersed energy into a single, blinding coordinate. The wave collapses. The waiting room shatters because it cannot contain the density of a fully occupied present moment. Imagine the profound silence that follows when the pendulum finally stops. The desperate, static noise of the waiting room completely fades away. You are no longer a victim of timeline viscosity. By refusing to swing, you force the external environment to adapt to your sudden, immense density. You become the immovable anchor. The reality you are waiting for must now collapse into the present moment to meet you. This is the true alchemy of the still point. Feel the immense weight of this realization anchoring into your bones. The sudden heaviness in your limbs right now is not physical fatigue. It is the feeling of your consciousness returning to your physical vessel after years of astral wandering in the hollow halls of hope. You are reclaiming your sovereignty from the pendulum. The system cannot feed on a soul that refuses to swing. You are no longer waiting for the shift. You are the shift. To escape the architectural decay of the waiting room, you cannot merely philosophize. You must initiate a radical, structural demolition. The system is designed to absorb your passive complaints. It feeds on your intellectual realization of the trap if it is not followed by kinetic movement. Therefore, we must deploy what we call the timeline pivot protocol. This is not a meditation. This is a sequence of precise, aggressive maneuvers designed to shatter your holographic holding pattern. The first phase of this protocol requires brutal honesty. You must learn to distinguish between genuine, necessary rest, the gathering of energetic mass before a leap, and the Archonic pacifier of disguised avoidance. The Matrix is incredibly skilled at mimicking spiritual alignment to keep you paralyzed. To expose this deception, you must immediately implement the Linger test. The Linger test is a somatic diagnostic tool that bypasses the logical mind, which has already been compromised by the system's lies. Here is how the Linger test operates in real time. The next time you decide to delay an action, claiming you are simply waiting for the right time or waiting for a sign, drop your awareness entirely into your physical vessel. Observe the immediate somatic response. Does the delay feel like a heavy, dull relief? Does a numbing sensation wash over your chest? That is the viscosity of avoidance. That is the parasite injecting you with energetic anesthesia. Consider this: if your supposed peace requires the continued suspension of your vital life force, you are not aligned. You are sedated. True alignment, the actual gathering of kinetic energy, feels distinctly different. It feels like a crisp, clean accumulation of power. It is a tightly coiled spring, a high-frequency hum in your biocircuitry. If your patience feels like decay rather than a coiled spring, you are trapped in the waiting room. The Linger test strips bear this deception. Once you use the Linger test to identify the avoidance, you must initiate the timeline pivot. This requires forcing a deliberate disruption in the code. The universe operates on the unforgiving law of momentum. To change a timeline, you cannot slowly, safely merge into it while asking for permission. You must aggressively intersect it. You must introduce an anomalous, unpredictable variable into your highly predictable routine of suffering. You must shock the system by doing the absolute unexpected. Watch what happens in your body right now as we discuss taking immediate and calculated action. Notice the sudden spike of resistance, the sharp tightening of the stomach, the immediate rush of logical excuses flooding your brain. That is the ego's scaffolding trembling. That is the Archonic interference screaming because the parasite hates unpredictability. It relies on your predictable hesitation to farm your energy. When you act without warning, you cut off its primary food supply instantly. Intentional disruption is the physical act of doing the exact opposite of waiting. It is the removal of the middleman between you and your reality. If you have been waiting for a cosmic sign to speak your dangerous truth, or to walk away from a draining environment, you execute the action today, entirely without the sign. You do not consult the stars, you command them. You step out of the passive passenger seat and seize the timeline's steering wheel. When you act with unprompted sovereignty, without waiting for the system's permission, you create a microscopic black hole in the fabric of your current reality. You forcefully collapse the quantum wave function of the waiting room. The timeline fractures. The matrix supercomputer cannot compute an individual who refuses to wait for the next input prompt. By acting asynchronously, you cause a glitch in the Archonic software, tearing a hole in the simulation that you can finally walk through. Picture this. You have been standing at the edge of a massive glass labyrinth for years. You have been patiently studying the maze, meditating on its geometry, waiting for a spirit guide to hand you the map. Intentional disruption is picking up a heavy stone and smashing the glass wall directly in front of you. You do not solve the maze, you destroy its foundational premise. You reject the rules of engagement entirely. This deliberate act of destruction is the true alchemical burn. Your old life, the comfortable, stagnant existence built on the hollow foundation of Sunday, must be burned to the ground before it can brighten. The timeline pivot requires the absolute sacrifice of your comforting illusions. The waiting room will collapse, and the falling debris will be terrifying. But that terror is the precise frequency of true liberation. It is the sound of your soul breaking its chains. What happens immediately after the pivot? The frequency of your reality violently shifts. Synchronicity accelerates rapidly. But do not mistake this for the universe patting you on the back. Carl Jung warned that synchronicities are not miracles. They are mechanical glitches in the matrix. They are the gears of reality loudly recalibrating to match your newly asserted density. They are proof that your disruption worked, and the holographic projection is scrambling to render a new environment around you. Bring your awareness down to your solar plexus. Feel that dense, tightly coiled, almost aggressive energy gathering there. That is the forbidden biocircuitry of your true will waking up from its coma. The walls of the waiting room are already dissolving because you have finally stopped believing in them. You are no longer a passive passenger on a predetermined ride. You are the gravitational center of your own universe. The delay is over. Implement the Linger test every single day. Relentlessly hunt down the areas of your life where you're using patience as a shield against action. Stop asking the external world for signs. become the undeniable sign. The timeline you have been desperately waiting for is not hidden in a distant, mythical future. It is existing parallel to you right now. It is separated only by a thin frequency wall that your own patience is keeping intact. Smash it. The grand deception of the waiting room has finally been laid bare before you. You are not waiting for the universe to magically align. The holographic universe is waiting for your frequency to stabilize into an undeniable command. The Archons have built an entire empire on your polite hesitation. Every moment you spend passively hoping for a better tomorrow is a moment you are actively abandoning the throne of your own present reality. The scaffolding of your patient identity is rotting. Feel the rhythm of your own heartbeat right now. Place your attention directly in the center of your chest and feel the physical, heavy thud of your life force. That pulse is not a metronome counting down your time in a cosmic purgatory. It is the hammer of your absolute sovereignty. The system desperately wants that hammer resting quietly on the floor. It wants you subdued, medicated by the false virtue of patience, while your vital energy is silently siphoned away. You stand now at the absolute threshold. You can close this video, take a deep breath, and walk right back into the familiar, heavy viscosity of the waiting room. You can go back to sleep, comfortably hoping that some external savior, timeline shift, or astrological event will eventually free you. Or you can choose the terrifying, alchemical burn of the unedited present moment. You can choose to become the sovereign anomaly that the Matrix cannot compute. If these words have caused a profound shifting in your physical body, if you feel the architecture of your false patience collapsing around you, do not let the ego rebuild it. The skip reflex will try to pull you back into the comfortable numbness of waiting. Ignore it. If you are ready to permanently exit the waiting room and claim your timeline, subscribe to this channel and join the Awaken. We are systematically dismantling the Matrix, one illusion at a time. There is no more someday. There is no right time. The universe does not reward the patient. It violently bends to the will of the sovereign. Step out of the waiting room. Reclaim your kinetic energy from the parasites of hope. Force the pendulum of your consciousness to stop at the still point and watch as reality rearranges itself to serve your density. Your timeline is yours to command. The delay is over.